Let's get to the big question here. When did you first meet Tim Donaghy?
We went to high school together, and he was a year younger than me. I knew his brother, who played football in high school, really good athlete, and I knew he had a younger brother. Timmy was a little bit, obnoxious, ornery, one of them kids that was very confident in himself, no matter what his ability was. He was always that way all through high school. He was a friend of mine, who happened to be my co-defendant, was Tommy Martino, who ended up being, part of the whole thing, the informant. They hung out together. We were at parties, went back in high school where we partied, drank, did different things, and then it wasn't until after high school and our early college days, I didn't see him till Tommy's wedding was the next time I ran into him again. At this time, he was an NBA referee, and I was already in my path to being, working as a
professional gambler,
as a gambler, or whatever you want to call it, as a gambler, mover, earner, and as I look at it, as broker. We acknowledged each other at the wedding, and that was it. And it wasn't until the early years in 2000 that I know he had some of the guys that he golfed with, and he would vest his opinion with on different information on the games. It was public to the circle of friends I had that this information was out there. And he was a terrible bettor in his own right. He couldn't pick his nose when it came to sports
So he
betting.
was actually refereeing games and betting on games for himself?
Absolutely. Well before I knew him.
Before you knew him?
Before I knew him. And it was, and then it was well known in that area of that circle of friends with the people he golfed with that he did. And it was brought to my attention when I was in Curacao that where he was betting the games. And one of the guys who was placing the bets with, who was a local guy in the area, went from betting certain NBA games, he was maybe betting a dime or two. And when we saw that, he was betting 5 dimes a game, that we knew there was something up. This guy was not a big player, but his play was starting to pick up. Right. Well, the games that he was starting to bet larger money on, through a friend said, these are the games that Timmy were reffing. Well, this was back in early 2003 and 4, and his games did very well. I had no contact with him at this point,
right?
But we followed the games.
Right.
You follow money. As a gambler or mover,
of course,
when you see games winning at a high percentage rate, you're going to follow them.
Right. You have access to the account?
Absolutely. We saw everything he was doing. The games were placed, 15, 20 minutes before they started, and it was just at this point the sides on the game. So we, for the next few years, we followed these games' information, and it worked out okay.
Okay. Jimmy, tell me some of the guys you were moving for.
After I got back from Curacao, and I started to move for a few guys out of the desert. The main one I moved for in the beginning was the Chinaman, and he was day-to-day. He was baseball, basketball, and football. Probably to this day, the sharpest human being I ever met in my life for day-to-day sports. He was unbelievable. I moved for the Greek, the Englishman, and also the computer. Not as much as for computer, but I moved a lot through the Greek with him.
So, out of all those gamblers, the Chinaman was the sharpest?
The best. I would take him 7 days out of the week over the computer or any other gambler, and double on Sunday, because he was just day-to-day sports. There was nobody better than him. He was incredible.
Wow. Now, did he bet first half, second halves? He bet everything?
He bet his on day-to-day sports, baseball, he was incredible. He bet, maybe first 5 innings. He bet a lot of dogs, correlated run lines. Like he bet parlays, way favored and over, home team and under. His run lines, the way he
Could you ever pick up like why he was betting games a certain way, or he was so diverse that you couldn't?
He was so diverse, but if we were on certain teams for a while, like the Cardinals, say we followed the Cardinals, and we'd be on them for a while, he knew something about the team, the way they were hitting, the pitching. He was in the day-to-day sports. He had such a feel for what was going on. For a guy that wasn't in in the clubhouse, he had a feel for the team itself, and he translated that through the way that he bet his games
and how he approached the market,
Correct.
the sports betting market.
Yes,
right.
And then and that's the only thing I think that put him above all of the other guys. That he knew his players. When we were betting NBA games, he followed the games. He watched these players. He knew the value of them. He knew when somebody was, what they were worth. Like games would move if there was a no Tim Duncan or no Shaquille or something like that. But some of these second-hand players, he factored in what they were worth and what they weren't worth.
Right, coming off the bench.
Putting people in foul trouble. His first half and second halves in the NBA were good. His NFL was phenomenal. But his halftime betting was, if he was structured and he had time to watch the first halves, he was
the best in the business.
The best in the business.
Right.
I mean, I would take the Bible, and him, and the best man I've ever seen doing sports.
Out of the other guys, who was the second best?
Well, the computer's up there, I would say.
Obviously, the computer's most well known.
Computer's most well known from the early '80s, from the computer case. Billy had, his savvy for gambling, but he also had so many of Stevie Z and some of these kids coming out of Harvard and MIT that were, getting these numbers together and factoring into the equation. They were great, But as I said, moving their games, you never knew if you were getting the right side with Billy. He'd say go lay 7 on a game, and next thing you know, he's ordering plus 8.5, for quadruple the bet and putting somebody on Queer Street.
Right.
Billy was known for screwing people over. So you never got a fair play the dice as a mover when you work with Walters, because you never knew what the right side was, and he has such control of the market. Whereas
when you say he controlled the market, was the amount he wagered on the games?
Yeah, the average. When this guy is betting, there's, let's say like college football, and there's how many games? There's 35, 40 on a Saturday, and he starts betting from Monday morning, from Sunday night when the openers used to come up in the Stardust, and we start betting, moving games and setting them up. Either he's taking a position on it to move it so forward that the public's going to follow, that he would bite somebody back on the opposite side. Say Michigan was playing Penn State,
right.
And Michigan was like a 4-point favorite, but he was going to bury Penn State plus 6.
Right, that was his main objective.
So he may invest maybe a few $100,000
to move that line
throughout the course of the week on that line. And, and next thing you know, on Saturday when it kicking and the game closes 3.5, and the game went all the way up to 6, and he just destroyed it. So, I mean, that was part of the way Billy worked. Now, there was a few games that he laid 4, and he just sat with it and probably took back 5.5, and, because it was the right number. But Billy's main thing was you never knew what his real sides were. So when anyone that worked with Billy, he could put him on Queer Street. It was a hard way to make money with Billy.
Right.
Whereas the Chinaman, he just picked winners,
right.
And you had a better chance, and you felt like you were in every game. Where Billy, you couldn't trust.
Right.
The Greek was fantastic. He was a good guy because he was just a straight bettor. It wasn't like he was just going to go leave me Central Toledo minus 17 for 30 dimes or something. He order a game, get as much as you can, and turn it in. Late 17, the game went up to 19.5 or 20. You felt you were on the right side.
Comfortable, right.
You felt comfortable in your position. Whereas, I never was worried with him because he was strictly business and the way he handled himself. Mm-hmm. He was a great guy. When I worked for the Englishman in the World Cup, he was scary because, from us over in the United States, we didn't bet the World Cup as much as, in the early 90s.
It was a lot less known than it is now.
A lot less known, and he was... the Englishman, he was fantastic. Now, he had handicappers that worked out of the desert that were good, for professional sports betting for the NFL and some basketball. But his main thing was soccer, and there was no one better. There was nobody better than him. And then that's when I really understood that the 3 betting lines: laying a half, betting the money line, laying a half a goal, betting the money line, betting draw, and stuff like that. So they were attacking on every avenue.
Everywhere they thought they had an edge.
Anywhere they had the edge. Right. I mean, even like the market, the market reflect what happened when you bet in Asia that because it opened up so much earlier, it would open up for, like, it's same with the stock market, it would open up earlier in the United States. It would open in Asia, they would play with the numbers over there, it would transgress through Europe, and then when Vegas opened up 11 o'clock, or New York, back in the day, when everybody was booking out in New York, you saw what everything was going, and that would be your number. Now, whether you knew what side they were on or not, at least you knew where the number stood and what it opened up.
Right.
And then it was fair game to take whatever you wanted.
Right.